everyone, I'm Selena Hill, and this is the new norm on Black Enterprise, sponsored by Cadillac, where I speak to dynamic leaders, entrepreneurs, and public figures about their latest projects and the impact they're making in today's world. Today, I have the privilege to speak with Leah Williams, the CEO of Digital Undivided, a nonprofit social startup that leverages data, advocacy, and programming to catalyze growth for Black and Latinx women entrepreneurs. For over a decade, Digital Undivided has not only increased visibility and access for founders, but it has also produced groundbreaking research and expanded to founder-centric training programs, strategic partnerships, and built a vibrant founder community. Leah, thank you so much for joining Black Enterprise today.
Thank you, Selena. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Absolutely. So, Digital Undivided helps give Black and Brown women entrepreneurs access to untapped reservoirs of innovation. Tell us more about your organization and the work you're doing.
This organization is fantastic. I've been here for not quite a year, and we are anchored in research, the Project Diane research, which is really the seminal study that, quote, so many people know, which is that Black and Brown women, of the trillions of venture capital and institutional capital investment dollars that are out there for entrepreneurs, less than 1%. And now it's staggeringly, persistently still staying below 2% for women of color and below 3% pretty much for women in general. So we are here to disrupt the inequities that are in the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the investment landscape. We do that, as you said, through programming like our different programs we have, as well as our seminal research, which we continue to do, which is Project Diane. And I'm just so excited to be here today to talk to you more about that.
Yeah, and I want to learn more about Digital Undivided and just why it's important for organizations like your own to continue to support women entrepreneurs.
You know, it's really critical for entrepreneurs, and all entrepreneurs know the two things that are consistent, which are that they need more time and they need a more connection because it's such a lonely road. And then capital is key. And so, Digital Undivided, we anchor ourselves in our research and data and analytics. We use that to inform our programming to know what are the areas where we could be supportive of these women CEOs that are running these startups and small businesses. And then we bring community to that so that once you become a part of what we call the Didverse, Digital Undivided's universe, you stay a part of it. And we're able to help them along their entrepreneurial journey toward intentional exits. And that is what is so critical and critical for our communities and critical for our economy, are these women and the businesses that they're running.
Speaking of the economy, I did want to ask what potential do women entrepreneurs have for growth and how do their companies impact the broader economy?
Well, this is a great thing I'd love to talk about always. I mean, historically speaking, what we have found is that generational wealth and wealth development in our country has really led through two means. One is home ownership, and two is small business and business ownership. And today, 1/3 of the businesses owned in the United States are owned by women. And this is the absolute future of our economy. The statistics show it in the United States economy as well as around the world. All of our leaders need to double down, triple down on investment of women entrepreneurs. And the fastest subgroup of those women entrepreneurs are Black and Brown women. They're the fastest growing subgroup of entrepreneurs out there, and women entrepreneurs are growing at the fastest. And so no longer can we have an economy of the past where one group was isolated, separated, not included versus another group. We need an economy where everybody is working, everybody is getting access to that critical capital that's needed in order to run those businesses. So those businesses can be going back in and supporting our communities, delivering our goods and services domestically in the United States as well as around the world, and able to really grow our economy as we see our world continue to grow and be interconnected.
We talked about, well, you gave some pretty daunting stats about just the funding or lack thereof there is when it comes to women entrepreneurs. We often hear that less than 3% of that funding goes towards women entrepreneurs, and less than 1% of venture capital goes towards Black women founders.
Hmm.
Yet, Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the country.
Hmm.
So my question is, from the 23,000 startup players in Digital Undivided's ecosystem, what should investors know about this incredible growing group of entrepreneurs?
Investors should know that we are your place for finding those innovative, next generation, scalable, aggressively growing, or aggressively maintaining, turning profit businesses. They are here, and as a result, we've seen this gap. We have these 23,000. Of those 23,000, we have hundreds that have already began to raise, that have raised over 250 or raised 500,000 to $1 million, or have revenues that are at that level. That is the 1% of the 1%. And so many of them are in our network. And so many of them also give back in our network. So they're growing other businesses. So we're launching the CapX network, which is Capital Access Network. And so those investors should come be a part of our Capital Access Network, because here is where they can look by industry. But we're industry agnostic, so they can look by industry, they can look by service, they can look by the experience of those founders. They can look at the past financials and things like that. We work with our investors and with our entrepreneurs to try to bring an intentional connection there. And we've been doing that just, casually for years. And so now we said, you know what? Now's the time for us to actually really launch this out intentionally. So that's what those investors should do. It's a great community as well as network. So join our Didverse and you'll find entrepreneurs and opportunities for investment.
When we talk about just the broader economy and obviously the large impact that women entrepreneurs, women of color entrepreneurs have, we also know that politics and policies also affect the economy and inadvertently affect women entrepreneurs and can affect their access to capital. We're in an election season right now, a highly intense election at that. So, my question for you, Leah, is what impact could the 2024 election potentially have on women entrepreneurs, and what should they be doing to prepare for the presidential election?
Well, let me tell you, this election, I think, is one really like no other. We've got two candidates that really sit at have very distinct differences between the two of them. Having said that, whomever wins this election and sits in that seat and runs that administration has to double down and triple down for women, particularly women of color entrepreneurs, because our economy, we cannot have a situation where some are included and some are excluded, which has been the previous situation. So for our entrepreneurs and for our investors, this is I talk to people all the time. This is a very uncertain time. And so immediately following the election, what we understand is that folks are going to be sitting down to say, okay, now where are we at? Because we have two very different approaches in thinking about growing this economy. For the entrepreneurs and for the investors, what I would say to them to be doing right now is to be really pre-developing those where they're going to be engaging in order to build up those intentional connections for investment going forward to the future. So you'll have some of your banks and your financial institutions, which are often your LPs. We'll be thinking about just today. We're having conversations about the Federal Reserve and the rate cuts, and so banks are looking at that, and that affects the ability to lend more money or not lend more money. And so as the banks are continuing to do that, your entrepreneurs should be continuing to upskill themselves, to beginning to keep their networks there, to understanding all of their key business acumens in terms of their finances and things like that. And your institutional investors really should be looking at strategic networks. Digital Undivided is one of them, won't be the only one, although we're going to aggregate a number of them. And so really looking at those key strategic networks, because there are so many great entrepreneurs that are just able to really send a return on that investment and doing tremendous impact in our communities, in our world right here, and we really need to support them.
That's great advice. And speaking of the election, based on the conversations you're having with other women of color entrepreneurs, those in Digital Undivided, and maybe even in your own personal network, what are some of the concerns or priorities that you're hearing from founders and investors concerning the upcoming election?
I mean, some of the concerns that I'm hearing from entrepreneurs is that, they want to move forward in a way that allows for people to work together, get along in business, not have it be an us and a them situation. And so we really want, what I hear from folks is we really want the next president to be a president for everyone and to bring everyone together. And I do think people have some sense that this is an election cycle. So there's, the sort of normal rough and tumble of the election cycle. But I think that entrepreneurs and investors are really very, very concerned that that their work and that their need for continual growth of their businesses is not being put first in this election cycle. And so what I would say is that for those entrepreneurs and for even within my own network, I tell them, listen, we got to plan for both scenarios. And the way to do that is you have to, the government is there to spur innovation and to spur access to capital. And what I recommend to folks is to look at groups that are preparing themselves regardless of who's going to be in that seat, because we don't know at this moment. And that's something that we're doing here at Digital Undivided, because we want to be sure that no matter what, our entrepreneurs get greater access to capital.
Can you talk about that relationship you have and how it impacts your work?
So, I mean, Kamala and I are friends. We have been friends now for decades. She is, it's a friendship that I truly treasure. She's held many offices, as everybody knows, around the country. And our friendship dates back to the early 90s. And, you know, I think the way I would say it impacts my work in terms of this work and all of my prior pieces of all, professions and roles that I've had is that Kamala and I share a similar mindset, which is the mindset that we don't wait for the ability to lead. We need to make an impact today. And her mother used to always say to her, but this is the thing that Kamala and her sister Maya and others and everyone close in knows this. Her mother, Shamala, was a force amongst all young women of color. And so if you were in that circle as I was, she said the same thing to everyone, which was, listen, you might be the first, but you shouldn't be the last. You should always lift while you're climbing. And so that has probably been the biggest impact on me in terms of that work, in terms of my work piece of it, having that relationship. But yeah, she's a dear friend. We've been dear friends. And she has, it's been exciting to see how she has continued to expand her career and impact nationally and then around the world.
Leo, what's one thing that you know about Madam Vice President that the rest of the world may not know about her? Obviously she's running for president. What is something, I guess, about her character that you think the rest of the world should really know about her?
Loyalty and care for the next generation. And here's what people have never really realized is how much she cares. Her friends and family know this. But I will tell you, before I'm Leah Williams, CEO of Digital Undivided, I'm Leah Williams, CEO of two young girls that I'm leading through the world as their guiders. And so I get up every day. My daily work always is tied into thinking about where are my daughters going? What am I going to leave behind? And this is something that I know about Kamala because Kamala, our vice president, Madam Vice President, we have aligned on this from the early days. She has a niece that many people know who was then, a young girl. I have younger siblings that many people know who were then young women young girls at the same time frame. And so this knowledge that you're impacting that next generation, you're caretaking for them, you're thinking about them, that is something that's really ingrained in her at every level. And even to this day, my girls, when we see she's the vice president of the United States, my girls see her, and no matter how busy she is, she takes a moment out to say, check in with them. How are you? How's school? What do you like? I mean, she really is at that level in terms of just caring about what's happening today for our young generation and what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's something she's always had, and something that people, because have just never quite, I think, known about her. She's had so many large, impactful offices, in terms of AG, DA, those things. But personally, as a friend, this is the thing. She cares about her family, she cares about her friends, and she cares about everyone's children.
And how do you think that would translate to her as president and in the White House?
Here's what I can only speak to her as a friend. I don't know how it would translate in terms of her policies and things like that, because but my personal stance is that she still gets up every day, as this person that thinks about how what she's doing is impacting the world around her. And as her friend, the thing that I'm most proud of is knowing that in her heart she takes very seriously the fact of the role she has today as the vice president, and the role that she may have, or other roles she may have in the future. And that, I think, is something that I'm very proud of as her dear friend. And so that's something I wish everybody knew about her.
Amazing. Well, Leah, as before we bring this conversation to a close, I wanted to ask, what are key takeaways that you would like to leave with our audience today, especially when it comes to those who may be women of color entrepreneurs?
So if you are an entrepreneur, particularly if you are a woman of color entrepreneur, I here are my key takeaways for you right now. We are in the third quarter of 24. Let's plan for 25 and 26 today. Continue to upskill yourself through networks, Digital Undivided being one of them. And we also have, one of the things we do is we always flywheel folks into other networks and accelerators. So regardless of industry, you can connect in, and then you can connect in vis-a-vis your industry. Look for those experts. Look for those people who are doing things at the next level, and connect with those individuals. Absolutely. And access to capital. Access to capital is absolutely key. Your business acumen around your finances and the business's performance are critical. So be sure that as you look at these networks and tap in, be sure that you are looking for ways to upskill yourself in that fashion also. For your investors, come here, because we're connected across all the industries, and we want to have these relationships, and we want to see your investment going into these entrepreneurs, and we want to see the entrepreneurs making intentional exits. And that, I think, is what I would say to folks. And, everybody go out and register to vote.
Absolutely. And how can folks either follow or get in touch with Digital Undivided?
You can find us at digitalundivided.org on our website. And you can always find me, Leah Williams, and I'm on we're also on Instagram, Threads, X, all of the social media. So look forward and connect with me, DM with me. I'm more than happy to connect with folks.
Leah, thank you so much for your time today, as well as the work that you're doing through Digital Undivided, empowering women of color who are founders and entrepreneurs through education, resources, and tools. It's much needed and much appreciated in this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're all in this together. So let's band together and let's go.